Hey everyone, in this video, I want to cover how frequently should you speak in a meeting or in a conversation, especially for someone who may be shy or introverted. You possibly have a lot of extroverts just constantly speaking and forcing you to speak as well and give your opinion even when you don't have one, or judging you for not giving your opinion, or who knows, maybe both. So the key is, how frequently should you speak in a meeting or in a group conversation? That's what we're going to cover. So you might have suffered from this at some point in your life. You're in a group conversation or in a brainstorm meeting or whatever it is, and the people who just seem to speak the most are the ones whose ideas are accepted. And naturally, this is a cultural problem because a lot of people assume that if you just push your idea harder, usually it's the accepted one, right? If you just scream louder than everybody else, then you're probably in the right. And there is a flaw with this argument. But what I want to cover here is how can you get your opinion across without needing to speak a lot, but also without holding yourself back from speaking. So the core idea that I want to introduce here is that you only need to speak at key junctures. That is, if you have a conversation or a meeting that is broken down into topics or chapters, you should give your opinion once per each of these chapters or per each of these topics. So what happens is you don't need to have a back and forth with someone if you don't need to, but you do need to voice your opinion for each of these topics. And here's the thing, even if you don't have a strong opinion, you can still give out your opinion as a neutral opinion, or you can just state that you don't have enough information or that you don't necessarily align with any of the sides. Remember, not speaking does not need to equal not having an opinion. When people are pushing you to speak, they're not necessarily pushing you to have a big opinion. They're just saying, voice out what you think. In many cases, it's completely fine to intervene just to say, you know what, I don't have enough information to form an opinion yet, or I would like the other people to speak first so that I can gather my thoughts and then speak afterwards. Don't be intimidated and don't let other people tell you when you should be speaking or what you should be saying at the end of the day. You should also notice here that by speaking only a few times, you can actually seem a lot stronger in terms of impact. What I mean by this is the following. If you have a person that is just constantly speaking and constantly saying their opinion, every single time that they state their opinion, it's nothing new or nothing major. But if you have someone who is quiet most of the time and suddenly they voice a strong opinion, it has a lot more impact because it's contrasted against their usual behavior. So in other words, the fact that you keep quiet most of the time, if you do, it's not a flaw, it's actually a perk. Because when you do raise your voice to speak, it's going to have a lot more of an impact. The role that you want to play is almost like that role of the mysterious person in the movies, where they keep quiet most of the time, but then when they open their mouth, they say something that is super targeted and that is killer. And then in most cases, it just destroys the argument of the other people who just keep speaking and spouting nonsense. It's important to notice that if you're a quiet person or a shy person, you can fit into one of two stereotypes in the eyes of most people. That is, you can either be the weak person, if you will, that doesn't speak up because they're afraid to do it or because they're being intimidated by somebody else, or you can be the person who is keeping quiet because they're very strong. They want to select their words and they want to wait for the right time to just deliver a killer opinion or a killer statement. And what you want to do is you want to fit the second stereotype, never the first. That is, you want to make it seem like you're not constantly speaking, not due to fear, but because you're waiting for the right time to pounce and to strike. It's also important to notice here that you can play the role of the mediator or the summarizer for other people. What I mean by this is the following. Usually, when you have people who are too extroverted, they just jump the gun. They give their opinion first, and they just say the obvious things. So this gives you a lot of room for sophistication, because if you wait for the basic people, if you will, to just give out the basic opinions and the most obvious ones, then they leave space for somebody else to come after and to say, hey, I'm going to take a piece of this opinion, I'm going to take a piece of this other one, and I'm going to shape them into a kind of mixture of the two, which is more advanced and more sophisticated. So by speaking after other people or by speaking less often, this is good because it allows you to actually obtain information from others, which in many cases is just a set of basic points of view, and then you can combine them and you can refine them into something more advanced. And finally, another thought that I have, which is important to pass on, is that you don't need to be afraid to be honest. What I mean is the following. In many group meetings or conversations, you may have this person who is the mediator, who is just there in an artificial manner to say, hey, you're speaking a lot, speak less. Now I want to hear the opinion of this other person, and so on. And while this may be good in some meetings, in other cases, it's just an artificial measure, right? They're doing it just to say that they did it. And in these cases, if you feel intimidated or forced to speak by somebody else, don't be afraid to say what you really think. In some cases, you just don't have an opinion. So if somebody tells you, hey, it's your turn to speak now, and they place you on the hot seat, just tell them, hey, I would like to hear a little bit more before I form an opinion. Or you can say, I literally don't have a strong opinion on this. I need to hear more, or I need to know more about the topic. As I mentioned, don't confuse being forced to speak with being forced to have an opinion. It is completely fine to speak and to say that you don't really have an opinion on a topic, despite other people trying to intimidate you or to judge you for it. So to summarize, it's important to realize that not speaking frequently is not necessarily a problem. You should make it a point to always give your opinion at least once for every major topic, every chapter, if you will. Even if it's not a strong opinion at all, you do need to speak, but you don't need to have a polarized opinion. Also, you need to realize that not speaking frequently is actually a good weapon to use, because you are going to be obtaining information while everybody else is giving out basic points of view. You can then deliver a more sophisticated and advanced opinion. And finally, also remember that you don't need to be forced into having an opinion. They can make you speak, but they can't make you try to choose a side. You can be honest, and you can literally say, in this case, I don't have an opinion, I don't have enough information, or I just don't know enough about the topic to voice my opinion now. If you've enjoyed the content, consider liking and subscribing, and remember to check out the channel for more persuasion, communication, negotiation, and all sorts of techniques for this purpose, but also for other purposes in life. Thank you so much for watching.